So, Cameron, let's hear from you as we go down the track about what it feels like to be in the shoes of these two pairs. Nerve-wracking to sit there, a bit of steering to be thinking about. There's no Cox.
Absolutely. So in the pair, as you can see, the main thing you want to get right off the start as we go down Temple Island is you want to get that hull really singing along in a straight line. It's not rocket science, but it should be said, if you can get down the course in a straight line, you will be quicker than if you wiggle around. You can see the stroke man of the Leander crew as well. He's just got his stroke coach there on his rigger. The hull's bouncing around a little bit and a little bit of steering straight away. Very relevant as to who's doing the steering. I know Andy Hodge, when he was steering fours and pairs, he used to always pick a spot in the distance and line up that hull, that steering wire, with a spot in the distance so it could be nice and straight and smooth. Whereas if you're in the bow seat, that seat closest to the front of the boat, often you can pick other markers. You might use the booms, you might use other things that you can see in your distance.
Yep, well, now we see the faces of Cameron Sullivan and Oliver Parish of Cambridge following their sisterhood crew down the track in the previous race, and both of these pairs are going to want to emulate. You mentioned Andy Triggs-Hodge there, he and Pete Reed, famous British team pair, multiple medalists at World Championships, and this is what these younger athletes are going to want to aspire to as they make their mark on Henley.
Absolutely. I mean, this event has so much history in it. Think about Matthew Pinson, Steve Redgrave in the 90s. Absolutely, you mentioned Andy Hodge and Pete Reed. For me, the standout pair when you think about the men's pair is the Kiwi pair of Eric Murray and Hamish Bond. They dominated this event for years.
Well, this is a great start, isn't it? They are moving neck and neck, stroke and stroke. It looks from here that Leander might have a slight edge, but it's marginal. It's a difficult angle for us to see. And there were some glances across there from Joe Willis in the stroke seat of the Leander crew. He really wants to make a move, and it looks to me like Leander are attacking it hard. We saw Cambridge yesterday not particularly pressed in their race, and they were able to be quite comfortable. Very fluid, the Cambridge pair.
Yeah, I really like the way the boat's moving and the way the hull's singing along in this Cambridge pair. One of the things I like to do is look at the bow and look at the stern of both hulls, and actually both crews are picking up that stroke really nicely. Both hulls are setting nicely out of the water. Looking at Cambridge, the stern seems to be sitting up and out, really picking up really nicely. Just a little bit of check in that Leander pair, but overall both crews doing a fine effort.
So that's the face of Callum Sullivan, Cambridge president and boat race winner. These two were 6 and 7 key seats in the Cambridge crew, and we saw an epic race against Oxford up at Ely at the beginning of this year. And those key seats, it's all about both rhythm but also technical quality. That's one of the things that can transfer well into a pair.
100%. I mean, as you mentioned, those 6 and 7 seats, they're deliberately chosen. You want that 7-man backing up the stroke man of an 8, and they're all very long and fluid. And often in a really fast 8, you look at that 6-man as the one that wants to really lay down that long rhythm and generate that strong boat speed.
Yeah, so these two both at US universities, but have been Leander members since the beginning of their time as juniors in the programme there, which is super strong. Coming together for this pairs event at a little bit of a glance across from Matt Peters in the bow seat there, just checking where the opposition are. That's potentially a sign that Cambridge have got a bit more of an edge. It's hard to judge from this angle. It's absolutely critical now for Leander to maintain in contact. They want to be focusing on their boat as much as they possibly can.
Absolutely. I think that the main thing to consider really now is that this long course, we need to make sure that our boat pace, if I'm in this hull, is going really nice and smooth, and making sure that I can pace out all of that effort through the middle of the race.
Yeah, we just see the umpire, John Hedger, is return to your station, Cambridge, he says, and he waves the flag again to make sure that they move back across. The Cambridge pair won't want to be being troubled by steering at this point. They want to get on with focusing on that process. Class athletes, these two. Callum Sullivan in the stroke seat, under 23 men's 8 gold medalist. He's been in semi-finals day at Henley before in the ladies' plate, and into the finals day in the Prince Albert in 2019. So he's wanting to make that story one better this time and see whether he can get all the way through this event. So it's Parish in the bow seat, also a Henley veteran. He was in the legendary St Paul's School crew in 2018 that smashed the school's record, equalled the Club 8's record time of the Thames Club, and so a legendary crew. Many around the world look at videos of that crew to see great, loose, strong, long technique.
And we're seeing it here in this Cambridge pair. I think alluding to what we were talking about earlier with that nice smooth pick-up of the stroke, the hull sitting nicely out of the water.
Yeah, just looking again, Cam, at the umpire warning, almost with irritation in the flick of his wrist there, John Hedger, get across. I don't want to see you across the middle line of this course. Get across and out of the way. So there's no reason for them to be drifting across here, and they really need to be focusing on rowing their own race. But meanwhile, the Leander crew glance around again from Matthew Peters, wanting to tell his stroke man exactly where they are on the course. Cambridge trying to sit in the lead, and I think they're wanting to sit now in this position as much as they possibly can. Last couple of 100 metres, they've opened up another length or so over the Leander crew.
Yeah, and it just is one of those things that you never really want to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. They've really got a nice bit of clear water, 3 lengths lead. They need to stay on their track. Always when you're racing side by side here at Henley, there's a little bit of gamesmanship. You want to make sure that you have the best absolute line dependent on the conditions.
Yeah, I'm thinking they may be slightly struggling with this, because if you look, that whilst they are at this point they're going to be wanting to steer as the umpires instruct them, actually the boat's moving the other way, and I'm not sure what's going on there, having a bit of a problem. They can afford, with this amount of lead, Cam, to just take the pressure down a little bit and correct their steering. You really don't want to be getting rattled by this. As you said, there's a risk of it going horribly wrong unless they correct that, and I'm hoping they're still doing that. But look, Hedger's arm is out, and he's really wanting to see that change in direction.
And it's an outdoor sport. It's the beauty of rowing. We don't know what's going on. I mean, it's not uncommon for things like a weed or something to get stuck in the rudder or stuck on the fin.
Yeah, I was just looking at that shot to see whether I could see anything. If you look, both this is the Leander crew attacking again. Great to see that attack. Come on, guys. Peters and Willis there pushing on, pushing hard, see if they can do anything to dent the lead that's been opened up by Cambridge. They've steered a better course. Cambridge have written their name in the river in the middle of the race a little bit, Cam, but it hasn't harmed the advantage they have over Leander at this stage.
Yeah, overall it's quite clear that the Cambridge pair does have that higher boat speed, but that warning again from the umpire just to stay on their station, this is becoming quite a serious. There's 3 or 4 warnings now there.
Yeah, and if there was a situation where Leander were impacted by Cambridge being off their station, then Leander might well want to raise a protest. Now, at this point, it doesn't look to me like they're being too affected. But with that distance in front, there will be a bit of bow wake from the Cambridge boat, and if they're a little bit close, that can unsettle the crew behind. I'm not sure it would affect the outcome of the race, and ultimately, John Hedger, the umpire, will need to judge, was there any effect on the outcome, if there was any infringement there. The flag is out again. I've got to say, with a pair of this experience level, Cam, you can't believe they're not having some kind of problem going on.
It would be odd, but then again, we've seen at the highest level recently that steering can be an issue. I mean, in the heat of battle, you never really know what athletes are thinking or where their attention is. At the moment, both bow and strokeman might be focused on that hull, and dare I say it, they're 3 or 4 lengths ahead of the Leander pair, who are quite far away from that umpire's launch. There is a distance to hear that umpire.
Well, Leander have another glance round. We're getting into the last 3 or 4 strokes, and Cambridge, I think, from the middle of the course, other than those steering issues, hasn't been in doubt. The result, a win for Parish and Sullivan, the 6 and 7 seat, the engine room of the boat race winning Cambridge crew, crossing the line ahead of their competitors from Leander, Matthew Peters and Joe Willis. And the umpire raises a white flag. That indicates that this is a clean race. He hasn't judged that there's been any impact of the steering on the outcome of the race, which seems to be pretty fair given how far they were ahead. So Parish and Sullivan over Peters and Willis in the Goblets.